So the next day after this happened, when you were 8 years old, you woke up, and what did you think? When you the very next day you woke up.
Well, keep in mind something. I was not in a very comfortable place. This was the uncle who abused me as a kid.
Uh huh.
Like, he would beat the living crap out of me if I annoyed him. And I annoyed him quite often because I was a loud, rambunctious kid.
Yeah.
So he would wait till no one was around and then hit the crap out of me.
Nowadays they would just dope you up with all kinds of drugs and call it a day.
Hey, but, so...
Not exactly a family member that you can kind of go to.
Yeah, I mean,
for
and my aunt
there's
was...
something weird happened to me last night. You can't tell him that because he'll
Yeah,
pound
he
you.
would have been the last person I told. And my aunt was kind of like his groupie.
Usually
No
how that
offense.
situation works. So you didn't tell anybody?
I told no one. Who could I tell? I mean, my father still thinks God rest his soul to the day he died, JFK was killed by Lee Harvey Oswald.
Oh boy.
Okay, so if I mean,
The magic bullet.
I tried to convince my father a million times that there's life out there in this universe. I even tried to use math to do this. Like, look how many planets there are.
I mean,
Look at the. What do you think the chances are? Even a God is gonna create this whole thing
this
for one race. It's just not feasible.
correct.
I mean,
It's literally at the sheer number of possibilities is ungodly.
Yeah.
It's just real and
unfortunately, if you're an evil entity, like I believe the Greys are, we're the perfect race to manipulate. We don't trust each other. We've killed people on nothing more than the color of their skin or religious beliefs. Very basic things we've had wars over. I mean, terrible wars.
not moving ahead too far, but what do you have any? I mean, what are your thoughts on the Greys? Like, without talking about your other abductions now, well, what's your overall opinion about them?
All right, I watch like when you've been an abductee, you're always looking for stories about other abductees.
Correct.
And one of the best stories I ever heard was on this YouTube channel, and I'm going to give him a bit of a plug, Strange But True, hosted by Steve White.
I'll check that out. Strange but true.
And he talks about a woman in the 40s named Laura, who was born in the 40s and had abductions her whole life. And her conclusion is my conclusion on the Grey. The Grey are not here to help humanity, stop some type of nuclear war. They're here for their own reasons.
When what reasons would that be?
Well, I believe they're here to partly to re-jumpstart their race. I do believe some of the stories about them being genetically stagnant probably are true. And it's like this. I believe they look at us so insignificantly. It's an evil thing.
Correct.
You don't come into someone's house and go and just take them. It's kind of like this. I have nurses coming to the house to deal with the wound I have from my coma.
Right.
Well, I fired one guy who showed up unannounced. He came in, even came into the house, didn't knock on the door, banged on my bedroom door. I didn't let him in. I called up the service and say, fire this guy.
Right.
I don't want him here. They're doing the same thing. It's except they have the power to take you.
Whenever they want, and just like when I talked to Nedra Gunn out in Arizona, it happened to him.
He gives the same type of impression.
Almost like it happened to him in the middle of the day where everyone was around him.
Oh,
and
sure.
He was like,
I've been abducted during the day.
and we'll get into that later. But let me ask you. I want your opinion. So when you said that their race is genetically stagnant, you'll have a lot of people in the ufology community who will claim that these. And I've heard from the dude I talked to way back that they're not alive, but they're almost like some kind of a
like a genetic robot.
yeah. I'll hear that a lot. Is that your opinion about them, or what do you think? Do you think they're alive? Do you think they're just?
I believe both are true because I've dealt with actually some of the live ones. They have quite the little nasty temper.
You guys.
And teeth.
This guy, yeah, just like Nedragun, Paulie right here, his experiences have not been
Fun.
With them whatsoever.
And you know,
I agree, and I 100% agree with you. I do believe that they are not here for our benefit whatsoever.
But they're going to tell people, what's the best way to calm someone down when you've abducted them? We're here to help you.
Of course.
We're sorry we took you, but we're here to help you. What else are you going to say? I'm going to slice you apart and stick something up your ass to collect samples? I mean, they do that. And I'm pretty sure I've been through that experience.
Right.
But I'm telling you, they're not going to sit there and tell you straight out, we're here just for your genetics, or we're here, or we don't give a damn about your race. How cooperative are you going to be?
And they don't. I've often heard that there are benevolent races of aliens, and from what I've heard, the one dude that I used to work at Area 51, he told me that his dad said there was at least a documented six, at least six, could be more. I've heard 11, or I've heard 15.
I've heard something. There's something like 9 races that our government has had contact with, but only 2 of them are benevolent.
And yeah, I think, and that's what I heard.
One of them was under civil war about the time of the Dulce incident, so they pulled out of here.
The Dulce incident. That's. And by the way, he's what was his name again?
Schneider.
Phil Schneider.
He had no reason to kill himself, and he had no way to kill himself. The man was missing 2 or 3 fingers. If you watch the video.
Yeah.
Now, how the hell is he going to wrap something around his neck when he's physically disabled from doing it? You got to have one hand that ties it around the fixture of where he hung himself, and another hand to really secure the rope.
Well, I've heard this from an anonymous source that does not want to be identified. Mr. Schneider was a very, very troubled soul. Very.
If you saw the stuff he saw firsthand, you'd be troubled too.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a contract engineer or something like that.
I think a gemologist. Yeah.
You know,
that was his field.
Right, gemology.
Yeah.
His job was to basically blast away rock to make a base bigger. And when he blasted away enough rock, he bumped into a tall gray. That's the story. Yeah. And the tall gray smelled worse than shit.
Which is what the one guy told me. They have there's a race that has an awful smell to them.
And then that's how the whole incident opened fire, because they started shooting at each other.
And if you guys never heard the story, just look up. I guess you just look up Phil Schneider. Look him up on
Dulce
YouTube.
incident.
Yeah, the Dulce
Wars. Incident, for those of you who can't smell, is a lot easier to get than Schneider.
Right, the Dulce Wars.
Because Schneider is not always the easiest name for some people.
You've never seen that particular tall gray or tall brown, whichever.
I've seen the tall gray,
but not this one with the.
I mean, the one personally? No. I was 1979. I was 7 years old.
Phil Schneider said when he was talking. Hello. Phil Schneider was. Hey, how's it going? You remember that Phil Schneider said that there was supposedly that there was a guard that they were instructed when he was down in the base to not make eye contact
Right.
with the tall grays or the tall browns. This
Uh-huh.
particular ones with the bad smell, and that one of them. I mean, this is kind of a wild story. But he said one of them, like, I don't remember if he said he died of fright, but he had like some kind of a
Well,
mental
right, yes. I know what you're
breakdown.
going.
Yeah,
There's supposedly one race, and it might be the reptilians,
something.
that are so terrifying and ugly. And I know I'm sitting here kind of going tongue-in-cheek, that they train people. Like, they pick people who are going to deal with this race. And they train you by showing you pictures
That's correct. Yeah.
of what these aliens kind of look like mock-ups.
Yeah.
And they say the real thing's about 10 times worse.
Beyond what you can, you think of the most horribly looking monster
Right.
when you were a kid reading scary stories, and this thing looks worse.
Keep in mind something. To some of these races, and we've talked about the Montauk incident, which is something
which we'll get into.
We'll get into,
yeah.
but when I watched the first Montauk video with Preston Nichols in it, not the one I was showing you, but there was one done in the 80s, I believe, that had him dunking Cameron and someone else. He was talking about some of the various races, and the reptilians considered Drano a meal. Or something like
Drano a meal.
Yeah,
they
something
would
like
they
that.
would eat Drano, like the actual Drano that you buy
Yeah,
to
the Drano for use for your pipes.
They drink that.
They would drink that or something. Consider that delicious. I kid you not. It's something like that. It's some type of cleaner or something like that. And I'm remembering Drano. Keep in mind, I had a lot of hair when I saw this video, and I was in my early 20s, so forgive me if I'm not getting all the details right.
Yeah.
But Drano, I remember. I know you're sitting here like looking at me like, are you kidding me? And the answer is no. But keep in mind something. Different races, different biological systems.
Do you think the Greys do you think they eat? What do you think they're, I mean, how do you stay, I mean, if you're alive, whether you're what do you call a biological entity is with
a non-human biological entity.
Yeah.
NBE,
non-biological.
Non-human, or NHBE if you want to call it.
Yeah.
Non-human biological entity. And this is going to get a little gross from what I've heard, because I've read a lot of things that have bumped into this subject. Supposedly, they take, you've heard of cow mutilations, right?
Of course, yeah.
They take the innards of cows, and I think they take human remains and mix it together to make this, like, liquid yellow gel. And they kind of bathe in it, is the best way to put it. Like, their mouths really aren't used for food, supposedly. But they absorb it through the skin.
So that's how they eat.
That's one of the, it's all the reason. It's also the other reason they supposedly smell like shit.
It's because of that.
Yeah.
Why, in regards to the cattle mutilations, why only take a few parts of the animal and just leave the carcass?
Maybe that's all they need.
Why not just take the whole cow? Are they like why leave it for them to discover?
The best way I could put it is, do you remember how the buffalo became an almost extinct race?
I think we hunted it down.
We hunted them, correct.
Yeah.
But when we hunted them, we would only take the skin, and we left the whole thing else to rot. Like, we left the meat and the bone.
I didn't know that. I didn't know why we...
Yeah, we just cut off the skin.
Oh.
People who traded skins only took the skins. The Indians used a whole cow.
Yeah.
And the cow was sacred. The buffalo was sacred.
Correct.
To us, they were nothing more than something we skinned for money. I think when it comes down to the cow and why just the mutilations, like when you look at the mutilations, they say it's very finely razor sharp. like razor sharp.
The instrument that they used to
Well, something we can't do yet. And
yeah, there's the incision wounds are
we
don't have the
we don't have the technology to do them
yeah.
yet.
I mean,
And I
especially
say
when they're out in
yet
the field.
because we will.
Yeah, and especially when you're just out in the middle of nowhere.
Right.
I mean,
so I think what they do is, like I said, they have no regard for humanity, no regard for the planet. They're here for their own needs. And this is not something that's new in history.
right.
I mean, people like, when I used to teach history, the first thing I did on day one after getting the kids to fill out the card of who they are and emergency contact, I would hand out a colored box that I would make up. Like if I had 30 kids, I'd make up 30 boxes. Every side had a different color. And the whole point was that to really understand history, you have to understand the perspectives people look at it as. And when you teach history, the people who are your dictators and selfish and greedy and do evil things. And sometimes we've done evil things.
Correct.
Like you look at the Trail of Tears. What right did we have to take the Indians and put them from one land to a small little patch and go, live here and deal with it?
Exactly.
They were here first. See, we only looked at our perspective. And that was the whole thing. I said, people who sometimes only see their perspective, I would tell the kids, going into history. And that's part of the danger. And that's something you want to watch out for. Who's looking out for everybody's perspective and who's looking out for their own perspective. When you look at the Treaty of Versailles, Wilson made up his 14 points. And I'm not going to give everyone a big history lesson here. But my point is going to be the 14 points would have went into that everybody was to blame for the war. And I had a lesson to teach that to the kids.
Right.
Where they fought World War I in Europe. And I'll tell you that a little off camera because it really isn't. But if you look at what is the Treaty of Versailles, one of the 14 points went in because all Europe wanted to blame Germany. Well, over-punishing Germany is what helped a man who was at best average, a loser as you called it before,
Yeah.
who basically was down on his luck, become the most fearful and hated dictator of the 20th century.
And
Gave Hitler the power to rise. And how did you get a whole country to hate Jews? Fate kind of plays interesting cards. The two officers who signed the Treaty of Versailles on the German side, who were the two lowest ranking officers, guess what religion they were? They both were Jewish.